taught them about that. So what I'm giving you today, I'm giving you through experience, not propaganda that I just saw on Google somewhere. I'm giving you personal experience. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Was on the ground. Our teams were in the villages with the imams. Before we went over, they told us, the government trained us on what to expect, and not only was it wrong, it was the exact opposite of what we actually faced when we got there inside the villages. And the imams were very clear, and the Muslims would tell us exactly the truth whenever we asked it. Whenever I reported up the chain, they're like, oh, just shut up, do your job. I'm like, well, I am. It's called counterintelligence. But anyways, so there we were. So that inspired me to start looking into their doctrine to figure out what was going on so we could properly counter exactly what they were doing. So I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps, 13 years on active duty. I got off active duty in 2007. Spent 8 years in the reserves from 2007 to 2015 when I retired. When I got off active duty in 2007, my first job was with the sheriff in my county. He was a Marine, and he hired me just because I was a Marine. Good choice on his part, I think. But anyways, I worked for the Sheriff's Department and the Drug Task Force, coordinated a highway and waterway drug interdiction grant. And while we were out on the highways and byways, we started to see the spillover, the human trafficking trails, as well as the drug trails, as well as Hezbollah and other jihadis that were working themselves in these same chains. So it all has spillover on each other. I asked the question, of course, at that level, everyone's like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We just need to get all these drugs off the street. So I thought, well, I need to do something else. So I wound up over at the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. I got there. They're like, oh, well, here's our mission here. We got to take care, do something about all these white extremists. Okay, but what about the jihadis? I have no idea what you're talking about. So, well, you should. I mean, the unit's called the Joint Terrorism Task Force, counter terrorism. We should be worried about that, right? Oh, no, don't worry about it. We need to worry about the white supremacists. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work for me. So eventually I wound up, ran for office for representative in my district, District 2, as a Republican, even though it was 88% registered Democrat. I got elected in the general election. I beat a 10-year incumbent. I was just a good old boy and was completely antithetical to our beliefs over there. When I got in the legislature, I started a counterterrorism caucus. We started a fight against Hamas, doing business as, who's linked, which I'll show you here pretty soon, to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. I started a counterterrorism caucus. I had some interim studies that we did. Of course, they come up against me and beat me up for all that stuff, lambasted me in the public's eye, but it doesn't matter to me. I wasn't in it for friendship with them or to be the popular guy. So I just kept on trucking along. I left the legislature, recruited a guy to replace me. He came in, he's doing a fantastic job today. Against my better judgment, I let some of them in this room today convince me to run for chairman of the Oklahoma Republican Party. No doubt the best chairman ever in the Republican Party. Second best one was here last night. I'm just kidding. You can tell I said it, but I'm kidding. I love Charity Lynch, did a fantastic job. As the chairman of the Republican Party, I didn't change. I just kept hammering away. If it's wrong, we got to go after it. If it's right, we got to stand for it. That's what I did. It ruffled a lot of feathers. It was not really a lot of fun. But anyways, you get the point. After I got done with all that stuff, I wound up doing what I'm doing now, but I was training folks at the STA's National Security Academy on these specific threats. So needless to say, I think I'm somewhat knowledgeable of the subject matter dealing with this. I know what their doctrine is. I've read it because it's in writing in English. You can pick it up and read it. It's really not that hard. 80% of the Muslim population across the world speaks English as a first language, so they've got to put it in English. So I picked it up, read it in English, and they tell us exactly what they want to do, why they're doing what they're doing. So we had to counter that. So as I get started, I want to show you this quick video, and I got to warn you, if you have a weak stomach, you probably don't want to watch this, but I'm just going to give you the unadulterated truth, and then you decide what you want to do with it.
Terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacy.
Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger, fighting fire with fire. We're gonna punch these sons of bitches in the mouth.
I hate Charlie Kirk. I think he's actually a Satan swap.
They thrive on chaos.
You can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands. Yeah.
There will be news sometime. Just so you know, there will be news.
Donald Trump is very much alive.
And it is not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies.
Biggest terror threat in this country is white man.
This is the last time an actor assassinated a president.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
I'd like to punch you in the face.
Go and take Trump out tonight.
Quality and Democracy are under assault by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans.
This dude has to be knocked over the head like balls.
So you have to do whatever is necessary in order to save the country.
We hang out in nice houses and nice cars, go to work, live good lives. All this stuff's going on around us. When it happens, we have short memories. We don't put dots together, therefore we don't put together a plan to counter what's actually going on. See, this is just the branches of the tree. We forget about these things and we never address the root of the problem. We won't call it out for what it is. We don't offend anybody. We don't want to make anybody mad. The truth of the matter is this. We're in the middle of a war. And we better start acting. Because we're losing. They're decades ahead of us. Because we got our heads stuck in the sand and we're comfortable right now. We think the wolf's not coming to my door. It's already here. If you think, well, I'll be okay if I just stay out of everything, you're wrong. So what are we facing today? What we're facing today really is what we call the color revolution. Color revolution historically represents a complex interplay of domestic discontent and external influence from people from outside of the United States, as well as those externally that aren't exactly involved or engaged in the direct thing that they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is have a political change through what they call nonviolent means. But the problem is today it's extremely violent. And that's exactly where they're trying to get to. So this color revolution is literally supercharged by the global Islamic movement and the communist Marxist movement. That's exactly what we're seeing today. So we literally have a color revolution supercharged by Islamic communist Marxist organizations. We've got an Islamic organization that's been here in the United States that we know of, as a matter of fact, for 60 plus years. First one ever set up on a college campus in Illinois in 1963, called the Muslim Student Association, Muslim Brotherhood organization. It's primarily led by the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. They were starting to shift and change everything over to the Turkish Muslim Brotherhood. By the way, Turkey's not our friend. Switch it over to them, but Erdogan, who they thought was going to be the next caliph, which is the head of the next Islamic State, and we assess the same. It's just unfortunate he's dying of cancer. It breaks my heart. But now they're trying to figure out how can we shift everything back, which they're in the process of. So the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood is still pushing it here in the United States. And not only that, they are literally tied at the hip with the communists and Marxists. Even though they're ideologically opposed in almost all their beliefs, they have one common goal, and that's to destroy this God-blessed constitutional republic. Why would they do that? Well, that way they can replace it with one of these two forms of totalitarian type government. You may be thinking, because y'all are smart people, what happens when they get to the end? It won't matter for us. But two, I'll say this, I'm certain, I bet money, the Islamic movement is a lot more violent. I know it is. And a lot more structured and funded, and they will destroy the communist and Marxist movement because they have a deity that drives them. Their ideological movement is stronger internally, and they're all commanded to follow it. And all these organizations, both of them collectively together, have many collaborators and financiers, especially the communist media. They're one of their biggest supporters. And of course, you've got the George Soros of the world. You've got the World Health Organization. You've got Gates. I mean, all of these, including elected officials on both sides of the aisle, are pushing and facilitating these things. So there's a guy by the name of Carlos Sajac. We ever heard of him? He's rotting away in a French prison today. He killed a bunch of people, committed an act of terror. Stayed in prison. He's in a French prison. He said when he got to prison, he converted to Islam. And after he converted to Islam, he said this. He literally said, only a coalition of Marxists and Islamists can destroy the United States. Very prophetic, because he's right. And that's exactly what they've done. Now, let me give you an example, because this is hard for people to swallow. Let me give you an example of this unholy alliance and how these two are meshing together. The communist Marxists and jihadis, these Muslims are meshing together into one movement. I think this guy's the best example to show you, because it's exactly what he is, and you've seen it in the news here recently. And his name just so happens to rhyme with Mamdani.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker. And yet for too long we have been told to ask for less than that.
This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be a part of, Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker.
America will be a Muslim country. Russia will be a Muslim country. Islam will enter every house. We have to be a part of that change.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker.
The Prophet says, the first thing you do is call them to Islam. If they accept it, leave them. House they're Muslims, we go. If they refuse, then tell them Allah obliged upon you to pay taxation. If they refuse, then we have to fight. And if we fight you, then we capture you, you become our slaves, and we take your land, and you take because you refuse, I give you two good options.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker.
Our fellow European white people complaining about immigration in Islam. First of all, I want to tell you that Islam is going to take over every single square inch of the globe.
You know, the other argument is, okay, so if you don't like it here, go to your own country.
How can you tell us to go? We're not going nowhere. We are here to stay. Like I said, we're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker.
When you say, like you said in your speech in France, you said things like, we will conquer the world, we will have the flag at the White House. You gotta understand, people they get scared of that, and they can push back from that. I mean, you're saying we're going to take over your country. Maybe you're not saying that, but maybe for us. I'm saying, no, I'm saying that, like, of course. Like, without sitting and I'm reading it, of course. We will take over, of course we will take over. Just say, if you look at the numbers, of course we will take over.
Of course, there are hadith and predictions of the Prophet that before the end of the world, Muslims, inshallah,
will rule the world.
One of the promises of the Prophet ﷺ is that the day of judgment will not happen until Islam prevails and we become victorious and we will rule the whole world.
The dream of every Muslim is simply to be treated the same as any other New Yorker, and yet for too long we have been told to ask for less than that.
Did you know that Islam's goal is to impose the laws of divine law on earth, on all people, and the vehicle to get there is through jihad? That's what they want, not to ask for less than anybody else. They're demanding more than, and they're doing it from a communist, Marxist, and an Islamic movement, and he is a perfect example of that. So how many military veterans we got in the room? You're going to know Simplify. You're going to know, yes, thank you for your service. You're going to know when I say this exactly what I'm talking about. You can't defeat the enemy. Basic warfighting doctrine says we can't defeat the enemy until we know who they say they are, how they operate, and why they operate. Then and only then can we formulate a counteraction plan to annihilate them, defeat them, and annihilate them. That's it. You ever want to ask yourself why we fought the war on terror for well over 20 years? We're even in Iran today. You know why? Because your politicians, those in government, the military, nobody, minus General Flynn, he called this out decades ago when they attacked him over it. No one ever called the enemy what it was. Therefore, we can't defeat the enemy. That's why we fought the war for well over 20 years. There was good men and women that lost their lives on the battlefield because some knucklehead up in Washington, D.C. couldn't pick up a stinking book and read the doctrine and figure out how we could defeat them. And still to this day, they won't even call it what it is. It's starting to turn. I mean, we got a Sharia caucus now on the federal side. They started it and they're starting to learn it. And thankfully, Tommy's been over there educating them. I'm glad that they're listening to him. Myself and another colleague went up there, have gone up there for years, talked to the Homeland Security Committee, talked to legislators separately and together. And it's just crickets. And the only ones that did do anything, like Michelle Bachmann, Louis Gohmert, and a few of the others, John McCain and their own colleagues pushed them out. This is a total train wreck. And we can't defeat them because we can't even call them what they are because we're afraid we're going to offend somebody. Anyways, just been a little excited if you couldn't tell. So, to them, this is a total war. You got a 60-plus year Islamic movement led by the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States, supported by their collaborators, financiers, and all these other knuckleheads. And then you've got 100-year communist Marxist movements as well here in the United States, been operating with impunity for decades. So what are we really looking at? Well, you can look at it any way you want. It's Marxism, communism. Marx created it. This is what we're looking at. And Lenin, he operationalized it, and Mao perfected it in a thing called Mao's political warfare. But don't be confused. This is not political warfare that we're actually facing. It's many lines of operation, many lines of effort that they're actually attacking us in. It's completely overwhelming us. I mean, President Trump's doing a fantastic job, but he can't do it all by himself. He's overwhelmed with so many things going on, and unfortunately, he's got advisors around him, and on these issues, they don't have a clue what they're even talking about. That's why he's making the decisions he's making that aren't the best decisions in this regard. And we're getting our butts kicked, and they're operating using Mao's political warfare as a guide to do it. I mean, the communist movement literally has doctrine, strategy, and written plans to operationalize that doctrine, and they've been doing it for decades. Not only that, they've got many organizations that support this. In my mind, these are called units because we're at war. These are all the units that are supporting their agenda and their doctrine, and they're executing it flawlessly and kicking our butt. By the way, there's one up here called Answer, Act Now, Stop Warning and Racism. You know, whenever that opened up right 2 days after 9/11, and you know who was on their board? Muslim Brothers and communists. They knew what they're doing all along. By the way, the Black Lives Matter communist Marxist organization. So out of Freedom World Socialist organization came Liberation Brothers. Maybe vice versa. Either way, you get the point. That's where BLM came out of. Their communist Marxists said so themselves. You can go look it up. You can Google it. They literally said, we are Marxists. If they were really for Black Lives, to put it in perspective for you, then why didn't they go to Chicago and knock down Dora Beetlejuice whenever she was the mayor down there? And the man that she stopped it killing every single weekend. The black on black killings. She didn't do it because they didn't go there. But you know what they did do? They really cared about black lives. Why didn't they go down to the poverty-stricken communities and say, hey, here's some money because they collected a lot of money. Let me help you get out of poverty. They never did it. You know what they did instead? They went and bought mansions. Then they got indicted not too long ago for stealing all that money that they took and never helped anybody. And on top of that, prove my point, that you know that they partnered with Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger, who founded Planned Parenthood, literally said herself, she founded Planned Parenthood to eradicate the black race in the womb. The issue is never about the issue. It's always about the revolution. And that's exactly what they did. So every one of these organizations, everyone that supports communism, they literally have one objective. It's all communism or Marxism. You can argue all day long, well, Marx created Marxism, communism was Lenin or whatever. It's all the same. It all leads to the same thing, death and destruction. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they're operating together against this God-blessed constitutional republic. I mean, Saul Alinsky said the issue's never the issue. It's always about the revolution. By the way, you know he wrote Rules for Radicals? Which Hillary Clinton and Obama both used the book. I want to show you. I want to bring this down to Oklahoma level. Did you know the Democrat Socialists of America are operating right here in the state of Oklahoma? You got Communist Party USA working right here in the state of Oklahoma. You got all these different groups right down here, offshoots of these two groups. You got Communist International working right here in Oklahoma. Matt's going to expand on this here in a little bit. But all these groups are working right here. You want to know where they are? The ones we know of that have actual headquarters, set up some kind of building. Not counting all the individuals that support it. This is where they are. There's certainly more than this. These are the only ones that we can find because they had to register with the state whenever they open up their building or their organization through LLCs. This is where they are. Pay attention to that. Do you know who Indivisible is? You know who funds Indivisible, the organization? Somebody take a wild guess. His name rhymes with Soros. He funds this. That's not a big deal. We're good. He's not here. He is here. You know how I know? Did you ever hear of the No Kings movement? Which Matt's got a fantastic story about that later too. But they're the ones that is funding and running the No Kings organization and the little protests and all that stuff going on. And by the way, that's not just Chicago, California, and other places like that. It's right here in Tulsa. Matter of fact, on March 28th, they had 2 planned protests. By the way, all the black dots there, those are all the protests they had throughout the state of Oklahoma, all on the same day on March 28th. Here's the ones that they had in Tulsa. These 2 organizations, or these 2 businesses. By the way, they're planning another one in October. They're going to do the same. Yep, have one in McAllister too, yeah. So they've got plans. They got doctrine, plans, and written strategy and units to execute their plans, and that's exactly what they're doing. And you know what? This is nothing new. I mean, we've known about this for decades and upon decades, through Yuri Bezmenov, through Bella Dodd, to all these different people. In 1963, there was a little item called the 45 Communist Goals to Destroy America. It was entered into official congressional record, the United States Congress, in 1963. It laid out the 45 plans, bulletized plans that the Communist Marxists were going to use to destroy the United States from the inside out. And they've completed almost all of them. I would encourage you to go look them all up. You can Google it. When you read through the list, it's going to terrify you because they've done all of them except the last one, which is pretty much a one world government, which is coming. And we know these things because they tell us. I mean, Yuri Bezmenov himself, he was a Russian KGB agent. He was sent into foreign countries. His sole job was to subvert countries from the inside out without firing a shot, crumbling their governments and replacing it with the communist government. He defected from Russia, tried to come to the United States, and would take him to Canada. Canada received him. Canada gave Canada all kinds of information. Finally managed to make it to the United States, told the government and everyone that would listen, here's what they're going to do to you. He said, we're going to do it in 4 phases. First is demoralization. Second is destabilization. Third is crisis. And 4th is normalization. How normal is the LGBTQ movement now? How normal was it to wear a mask? How normal was it where you got to get a shot if you kill grandma? How normal is it today to see sex on TV, public television, hear cussing on public television? How normal is it to hear about a teacher, male or female, that's molested a 14, 15-year-old boy or girl at school? Their plan has been executed almost flawlessly. So when they use Mao's political warfare model, they're talking about total. You see, we always focus on one little single subject while they're focusing on many. And they primarily are swimming in these pillars of our government. And I told you earlier in an earlier class, the laws of nature, nature's God, which is in our founding documents, legally defined as the laws of nature, nature's God, God's word and God's will according to Holy Scripture and Holy Spirit. That's who we are. We're a Christian nation. This is completely antithetical. Communism, Marxism, Islam is completely antithetical to who we are. If they chip away that down there, they can make the whole constitutional republic crumble and we'll be defeated. If they swim in all these different lines of operation, and if they don't have any successes here, they sue your pants off through lawfare. As a matter of fact, well, I'll get to that in a second. I'll give you a good example. But the primary target is the church. You know why? Because all these folks, these pillars of our society and others, do or should come out of the church. The church has a direct effect on them, one way or another. Got to get outside the safety four walls of church and make sure they're doing what they need to do according to church. So this is the main target. And I can't blame them. I think it's a pretty good idea. They should go after church. If I'm the bad guy, this is what I'm going to target because this is who we are. This is our moral standard that has made us successful for 250 years. I mean, if you don't believe me, just Salinsky's Rules for Radical. Did you know that he dedicated this book to Lucifer? Did you know that Karl Marx said if people want to be truly free or have a good life, then they need to get rid of religion? He's talking about Christian religion. Because that's real freedom. So what we have here is a total war. To them, it's a total war. Most of us aren't even on the same battlefield. They're certainly not on the same battlefield in the United Kingdom today. I mean, look what's going on. Tommy told you yesterday. And if you talk to him today, he's going around the entire United States. Why is it somebody from another country has to come and tell us, hey, you're in trouble? Why can't we get out of our comfortable zones and get out there and do something? Now, you all are, at least you're here today, but we got to stand and do something. Otherwise, we're going to lose. We're going to be on our knees with a knife to our throats because they are in a total war. That's the way they see it, and it's a long war. We get caught up in, I'm going to fight the skirmish right here. I beat them. We're good. We beat the mosque in Broken Arrow. Fantastic. You think they're done? No. What are you going to do now? Regroup, reload, and get back to work. That's what you need to do. I mean, we're in big time trouble. And they're working together. They're seamlessly tied at the hip. No doubt, though, the most violent of the two that are working together is Islamic movement. They are extremely violent. And again, I'll tell you, if you don't know who they say they are, how they operate, why they operate, you can't defeat them. You're spinning your wheels, you're wasting your time. You might as well just go down to the local morgue and pick out your casket now. It's so harsh. Listen, I don't have time to lie to you and pitter patter around. We need truth and a big dose of it. Truth only hurts when it should, and hopefully it inspires you to take some action. Legal and lawful, but very creative action, because there is some that you can take. So what are we actually looking at with the Islamic movement? This is where a lot of people get confused. So I put this slide together to help everyone in the most general terms. I'm a Marine most of my life. I like red crayons, so I have to make it very simple and easy for me, so I made it very simple and easy for you. So what are we looking at with the Islamic threat? This is what it is right here. Somebody tell me what race a Muslim is. Thank you. You guys are a lot smarter than I look. I couldn't tell you how many times from 2010 to, well, even here recently, still to this day, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a Muslim Brotherhood group, as evidenced in the Holy Land Foundation trial, largest terrorism financing trial in the United States history, which took place in Dallas, Texas from 2004 to 2008. All the evidence is clear. They are part of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. They have attacked you relentlessly for calling the truth about this for years. And you know what they say? You're a racist, Islamophobic bigot. And everybody shut down my fellow Republicans, Democrats, they all crawled up like big sissies in the corner. Maybe even some of you in this room, I don't know. I don't blame you. I mean, I'm not condemning you. I love you. But now you know you better get in the fight. You have a responsibility to do something. But then you call me racist all the time. And I'd ask them, well, tell me what racism is. Dear in hell, I do. You know why? Because they didn't know. They had no clue. A Muslim's not a race. It can be from any country. It can be any race, any height, any weight. It don't matter. A Muslim is just what someone simply called that submits to Islam. And Islam, according to Islam, is a complete way of life. It encompasses a Muslim's entire life, and they are governed by Sharia. We call it Sharia law. They call it Allah's divine law. And a lot of people say, well, I'm going to go get a Quran, I'm going to figure this out. Well, great, go read the Quran. And I tell you what you really need to do, the only thing you really need to do is go get this thing. It's called Reliance of the Traveler. This is Sharia law in English. And according to Al-Azhar University, which is like the Harvard in the Middle East, that's where they send all their scholars to learn Sharia at Al-Azhar University. They literally stamped this and signed it and said, this is the most authoritative and accurate translation of the Arabic original. It's written in English. Why do they write it in English? Now we know. They write in English because most Muslims don't speak Arabic. They speak English as a first language. Did you know in Islam, where one Muslim to lie to another Muslim about what Islam truly is? It's punishable by death. But you also know that they are commanded to lie to non-Muslims about what it really is, as long as they're promoting Islam. So I would encourage you to go get this. You know what this is made up of? Because the Quran makes up the Sharia. It feeds into the Sharia as well as the Sunnah, which are the words and actions of the Prophet Muhammad. And according to them, Muhammad was the most perfect Muslim for all times, for all Muslims to follow for all times, if they want to make the law happen. Now, some of you may say, well, you know, my Muslim neighbor is really nice, and they say that verse in the Quran that talks about all the violence, smite the necks of the unbelievers. The verses that command them to push homosexuals off of buildings in the Middle East, that doesn't really mean that. Those are radicals. There is no radicalism. There's only Islam. Just because they don't follow it all as they're commanded to do doesn't mean there's a different version. There's only one. And those that are saying, well, we're moderate, we're going to reform Islam, you can't because it's punishable by death, for one. And two, you can't reform it because you can't untangle it. This is the totality of Islam. But if they say, well, that verse doesn't mean it means something spiritual. Well, let me present this to you. There's this thing called the tafsir. The most authoritative, according to Islam, is the one by Ibn Kathir. The tafsir legally defines every verse in the Quran. And it's in black and white. You see, because in the Quran, they also have a thing called apostasy. If you even think in your mind that what it says in black and white is not exactly what it says, you can be killed for that because that's believing Islam. It's not believing the law. So if you know Sharia, Allah's divine law, and you know that the most perfect Muslim is Muhammad according to Allah and the doctrine, which says at least 91 times in the Quran, by the way, is the most perfect Muslim for all them to follow and emulate, then you don't have to ask the question when you see a Muslim kill a Jew. You don't have to ask the question whenever they come across the border, like they did in Israel a couple years ago, and slaughtered all those innocent people. They came across there and murdered those Jews because they're following the perfect example. Because the perfect example, and Allah himself hated and wanted Jews killed. Muhammad personally participated, according to Islam, at the Battle of the Trench. In the Hadith, one of the most authoritative Hadiths, which is Bukhari, which all the writings about what he did and what he said, literally says that Muhammad personally participated in cutting off the heads of 600 to 800 Jews, dropped them in a ditch, took their wives as sex slaves and their children as slaves. That's why today you see Muslims that say they hate Jews and have such a hatred for Jews. That's why they're following the perfect example. That's why we see 60-something-year-old Muslim men today that married 9-year-old girls. They think it's okay. Muhammad did it. Married a 6-year-old girl by the name of Aisha. Raped her at age 9 to consummate the marriage. That's why they think it's okay. How about he condoned the killing of those who mocked him. That's why you saw those 2 jihadis drive down to Garland, Texas a couple of years ago, went down there with AK-47 rifles to go in there and kill their plan was to kill everybody in there because they were at Draw Muhammad contest. They were mocking Muhammad. What they didn't count on, though, was the security guard that caught him that confronted him out front. He just happened to be a 3-gun professional shooter, and he took both of them out with his pistol. Don't mess with Texas, right? So, same in Oklahoma. That's why they do what they do. Some people, well, you know, the Muslims in the Quran, they also, well, you know, it's this is a conciliatory thing. There's, you know, there's no compulsion in religion. We don't force you to convert to Islam. Well, that's an outright lie. They don't think it's compulsion because they give you an option: convert or you die. Or if you're a Jew, a Zoroastrian, or a Christian, you got another option: convert, you die, or you pay a tax called a jizya, which is a slave tax. Go ahead and answer all the questions. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about him. So he started down here in the southern Arabian Peninsula. I got a cool arrow here somewhere. There it is, down here in the southern Arabian Peninsula, down in Mecca. So he goes into this cave, and he has a convulsion. He comes out and tells his uncle Warqa bin at the time, and his wife Khadijah, which was considerably older than him. It's a mutual marriage type thing. She run a lot of caravans. Anyways, goes out and tells him, hey, this jinn or this evil spirit just came and spoke to me. He was terrified. They're like, no. That was the angel Gabriel. He wants you to be a prophet. So you know what he does? He takes the Old Testament and he twists it around, makes it his own. He starts his own religion called Islam. He tries to convert people for quite some time. He couldn't get anyone to follow him except for a few family members. As a matter of fact, at one time, the Meccans banned him out to the desert, and he almost died, which he carried that hatred with him for a very long time. He came back later, after he immigrated to Medina, come back later and killed the Meccans because of what they did to him. So he started down here in the southern Arabian Peninsula, and he started with these conciliatory type verses. Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. Whoever rejects evil, believes in the law, hath grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks in the law, heareth and knoweth all things. Doesn't sound too bad, right? So what he does over time is this thing called progressive revelation. Because you got to remember, anything they say or do, you have to put it through the lens of Sharia. You can't put it through your Christian eyes or your Western eyes. You'll never figure it out. So this progressive revelation, he started down here with this conciliatory type verses down here in the southern Arabian Peninsula. He almost dies out in the desert. He decides he's going to immigrate and go up to Medina. It's called the Hijra. And by the way, this is where the Muslim calendar started. Islamic calendar started. AH, after Hijra, immigrated to Medina. He gets up to Medina. He borders this peace deal between these two Jewish warring tribes. And they're like, oh my gosh, you must be something special because we've never had peace between us. Some of them start following him. He starts to get more and more people. He starts raiding caravans. He starts splitting the bounty that they get with all his followers. They start to grow, and as they grow, he switches from the conciliatory message he had to today we know as a violent, political, militant message. He changed his message from this conciliatory message to this: fight them until there's no more fitna, and the religion will be for Allah alone. He realized through violence he could force people to convert. He grew his numbers. I mean, if you get the option, hey, join us or we're going to kill you, you're going to join them. I mean, it's just a human reaction.